Hello, my friends, my family, my dear colleagues. Today I'm going to give my spiel on deuterium. I was asked by a friend to explain my opinion about heavy water. Now, why this heavy water even came into question, and this is because of our president, who lifted a bottled water with two hands, and there was a lot of joking around it by the media, and of course anything he does, or everything that he does, is a signaling, has a message. Now we don't know to whom the message was directed, and I do not want to go into really elaborating this, because unnecessarily I will put this YouTube in jeopardy. So I'm going to skip the whole situation and just focus on deuterium. Now, what is deuterium? We are told that water, molecule of water, is H2O, okay, which is one oxygen with two molecules of hydrogen. And that's it. And then we have a so-called isotope of hydrogen, which is a little heavier, not little, it's actually twice as heavy as hydrogen. But when bonds with water, in the same with oxygen, also produces water. Only since this hydrogen is twice as heavy, the water is going to be almost twice as heavy. This is why it's called heavy water. But the properties are very similar. Now, since we know that we are being poisoned in many different ways, now the questioning came, if we are being poisoned with heavy water, if heavy water was being put into our water supplies or in bottled waters, and is this done for purpose to make us sick? And there are some experts, we go to experts, who made a big sting about it. One of them is Dr. Jerry. Actually, it's not Jerry, although we call him, but as it's written, is Here Rivera Duhenio. And he basically talks about it as heavy water being extremely toxic, deuterium being more toxic than heavy metals, including mercury. And that people that drink water that has less deuterium in it have longer lives. And since naturally occurring a heavier water that is heaviest polluted with deuterium is a seawater, which makes seawater, in his eyes, very unhealthy. And then he picks a sample, telling, just look at surfers. They look very old. Well, I happen not to agree with him. I know quite a few surfers, and they have all their hair, not unlike him. And they look pretty good. And me, myself, I was a sailor. I lived on a boat for over 25 years, did a lot of diving, free diving and spearfishing. And on top of it, I drank seawater, either partially desalinated or desalinated, but then with added salt, but still seawater. And the desalination process does not take deuterium out. So I should actually be in extremely bad shape now, but as a 65-year-old, I feel like as I was 40, and I don't look much older either. So just about everything that this expert is saying, I don't see. Again, maybe my eyes are not that good, maybe I see what I want to see, or maybe he sees what he wants to see. But then again, there goes, we know that one of the characteristics of heavy water is that it freezes faster than, let's call it, regular water. And this is why when ice is melting, deuterium is going to be the last one to melt, the heavy water, which means if we are drinking from the water from a glacier, we'll have less deuterium because most of the deuterium is still staying trapped in ice. And as an example, he again mentions people that lives on high mountains and in places in very far from civilization and nature, saying, well, they live long, up to 120 years. Well, 120 years, that's a baby talk. I mean, everybody who lives in open air lives 110, 120 years. I know many old people in Yugoslavia, in the mountains, who normally live that age. Has nothing to do, absolutely nothing with deuterium. Now, this is a common mistake. When we zero on one thing, and then we are trying to prove our point, and then we are looking at samples, and then we only focus on this one information, and then we forget about the quality of air where these people are living, the lifestyle that they are living, the rest of the food that they are eating. That's all being neglected. It's only focused on deuterium. Of course, even a surfer, if it's a pothead and drunk, is not going to look that good, no matter is he surfing or not surfing. So there's many different factors involved in this. And unfortunately, when we don't understand things, then we go to statistics and try to explain science through statistics. We are information gatherers and not scientists. Now, even him claims, well, we are young organisms, they actually thrive on deuterium, but as we get older, we need less of it, and it actually creates a faster aging. So how can one compound help you during fast-growing age, and then all of a sudden do the opposite as you get older? Well, maybe I'm stupid, I just don't get it. So we can basically flush all this science into toilet and start looking at some facts. First, anyone that follows my work already knows that I'm strongly against biochemistry. Why? Because it is very easily manipulated, and it is basically created to confuse us. And we start believing these formulas that can go any which way you want. It's like a quantum field. You can connect anything with anything and blame it to be the proper thing that is being done in nature. And I simply think it's all baloney. We have to go into physics, and better yet, in quantum physics. But even before we go there, why this chemical confusion? Well, normally, for one atom, we consider an atom to have equal number of electrons, protons, and neutrons. That's an atom. Like, for example, carbon-12. It has 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 6 neutrons. 6, 6, 6. Familiar? Molecule of life, which Cabal has hijacked and made it the opposite. Molecule of sacrifice and death. Number, actually. Well, this is what they do. But at least this is a normal thing. So, when we go to hydrogen, normal hydrogen should be same. Has 1 electron, so it should have 1 neutron and 1 proton. What we call isotope. In chemistry, we say isotope is every atom that does not have equal number of neutrons. So, again, let's say carbon. Instead of 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 6 neutrons, you have a carbon that has 6 electrons, 6 protons, and 8 neutrons. That's carbon-14. And we say it's isotope. So every atom that does not have same amount of neutrons as protons in core, we call it isotope. But bingo! In hydrogen, somebody screwed up, because we call a regular hydrogen 1,1, which is 1 electron and 1 proton, no neutron. And bingo, there is also 1,1,1, 1 electron, 1 proton, and 1 neutron, which we consider normal electron, normal atom, but now in this case, all of a sudden, this is isotope. Am I losing marbles? Or is somebody fooling with us? Well, in water, we actually have both. We have the isotope, and in my book, isotope is 1,1, which we have named protium, which most people consider to be the regular hydrogen, 1 electron and 1 proton, no neutron. But in my book, this is actually isotope. The normal atom should be 1,1,1, which we call deuterium. But it doesn't matter. Let's not be too technical. Let's assume that deuterium is heavy, because the weight comes from the core of atom, which contains the proton and neutron, and they are equally heavy. So since you have not only proton but neutron, so instead of 1 you have 2, so the weight doubles. And now we have stories that, yeah, well, it's very toxic, but you can drink 1 glass of pure deuterium heavy water, pure, and nothing will happen to you. But if the level of deuterium of heavy water in your body reaches 25% or more, you may have reproductive problems. But nothing about your health until you go to about 50%. So half of the water has to be deuterium. Now, yeah, the most saturated deuterium, heavy water, in nature is in the sea, seawater, which is a 5%. So it's a far cry from the 25 or 50%. And not only this, we know that body basically absorbs and rejects what it doesn't want. So it should not have any problem eliminating what it doesn't want. Well, this we forget in the science. This is unscientific. If it is there, it is potentially toxic. And this is why we have so many stupidities being done, even with vaccines. Things are being put there with attention to harm, like, for example, Nagalas, because it has been discovered that cancer cells are packed with Nagalas. So it must have something to do with cancer. So we put Nagalas there, we create cancer. Doesn't happen this way. Because we know that Nagalas is enzyme that is necessary for the cell to be able to manipulate glucose to be able to burn it, to turn it into energy. So the cell that predominantly works on sugar, and the cancer cell, tumor cells work exclusively on sugar, they will have a lot of Nagalas for this process. It does not cause any problem. It actually empowers the cell to be able to survive running on high glucose fuel. You can put this same Nagalas into regular cell that runs on fat, and it's going to be sitting there not doing anything, and cell will eliminate it because it does not need it. Will take it apart, does not need it. But it's not going to cause any problems. But this is too brainy for scientists. They observe and repeat, typical parrot. And same is being done now with deuterium. We have to find somehow problem here and put all our attention in this way. Don't look over there. No, look, this is what scientifically, I'm a scientist, I'm telling you, look this way. Well, we should pack all these scientists, put a postmark on them and send them up to a moon or somewhere where they can preach to some idiots, because we are waking up. And we don't buy this bullshit anymore. So, if we can safely drink 1 glass of pure heavy water daily without any consequences, then having traces of it should absolutely mean zero for our health. On top of this, there is another minor detail. We are discovering, before we have been told, when I was studying, that there is a nucleus of atom, where there's this proton and neutron, and then there are the electrons, particles, zipping around it so fast that basically they create like a fog. Well, now we know that nothing is zipping around anything, and that really this looks like a fog, but the electron is everywhere at the same time. So if it's one electron everywhere at the same time, how is that possible? Well, this is why we go into quantum. We go into quantum mechanics, where particles do not exist. Particles is creation of the program installed in our brain. Because brain has to show matter, the matter has to be made of something, so the brain, so the ego can understand it. Brain just calculates. Ego is the one that accepts it or rejects it. And if there's no particle, ego cannot handle it. Because everything is made out of dots. These dots are particles. This is why you look elephant, well, it has the cells. You break down the cells, well, they have molecules. You break down molecules, well, they have atoms. So you break down atoms, they have these electrons and nucleus. You break up nucleus, well, they have these protons and neutrons. So you break them, well, they have gluons, and they have freons and flacons and blapons. As far as you go deeper, you have to invent some baloney that does not exist. So the brain can understand how come that it's going further and further until we go to the minor invention, which is photon. Because photon we have accepted as the initial, the smallest particle of light. And since everything is hologram, everything is made out of light. So, when we know the truth, well, now we have some solid ground to start building the castle on. So what is this atom? Atom is vibration. Conscious vibration that radiates electromagnetic field. And this electromagnetic field is what we call the aura. And the aura is the fog, electronic or electron fog that we have imagined to be. Everything is completely different than what we know. And what creates the special characteristics of everything? Well, we already know that has nothing to do with what kind of an atom, with how many electrons and protons and neutrons is involving. It is about the grid, the structural grid. This is why you can have plain water, doesn't matter how much heavy water it has inside, how much deuterium, how much protium, that does not really matter. It is the grid that it forms in connecting these energies together, which are going to bring characteristics of whatever now the brain shows you that this represents. So the water, you can just look at it, send your thought in there, electromagnetic wave, and telling the water to be healing water, and the water is going to become healing water. And you didn't put anything in there. Pure placebo. But actually water is going to be healing water. And you can as well look at the water and say, well, this water is pure poison, and it is going to do, and you tell the water what to do, and all of a sudden somebody drinks this water and dies from poisoning. Well, new science. I think that we basically have to roll up sleeves, put our tennis shoes on, sit on in a bench again, and start learning all over again. Because where we are now is a new world, my friends. Completely new world with new understanding. So all this baloney that we are listening from the experts, in my opinion, and again, that's my opinion. Always take it with a grain of salt. I'm just telling you why, on what I'm basing my opinion. You do the same. Gather as much information as possible and let your brain do the calculation and try to keep the ego a little bit out of the equation without suggesting you what it should be and what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. Because the only thing that is acceptable is what makes sense, not what somebody else says. We are all our own universes. Each one of us. Our cell is its own universe of its own consciousness. And we just have to understand that our creation is unlimited. The only limit is our imagination. This is why when scientists are doing experiments, they basically know what they are expecting to see, and if the brain calculation confirm it, the expectation becomes our reality. And this is why we have so complicated our life. We complicated our knowledge so much. We have so many schools. We have to study 1/3 of our lives so just we can survive in this complicated world we have created. When in fact, it is so freaking simple. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And let's continue investigating. Love you all.